Got my parrot shirt on today. You know why? Because we're going to talk about Brazilian rosewood. That's right. We're going into the jungle. We're going to talk about Brazilian rosewood today. We're going to talk about, let's see what I got here, hide glue, epoxy, and the finish of a historic Les Paul. Let's dive in first with the Brazilian rosewood. On historics, they usually use East Indian rosewood, Ethiopian rosewood, they use non-Brazilian rosewood. Why is this? Well, Brazilian rosewood is outlawed, and it's an endangered species, and you need a certificate to prove that you cut down this wood before, I believe it's World War II. You can use stump wood, which is what Gibson was using in '03. People like it, people don't like it. Beggars can't be choosers, I always say. But when it comes down to things, does Brazilian rosewood really matter in tone as opposed to East Indian rosewood? Well, I have two guitars with Brazilian rosewood. This is one of them. Is there any difference between the tone of this instrument and, let's say, 23, which has East Indian rosewood? Absolutely nothing. Here we go. Here we go with this one. I'm sure people get pissed off. Brazilian rosewood does nothing to tone in comparison with other rosewood on a fretboard. Okay? If we're going to talk about you're making a flat top and the back and sides are going to be Brazilian rosewood as opposed to East Indian rosewood, is there going to be a difference? Maybe. I have never heard a difference in reality that would make me pay a premium for it. So what's the big deal with Brazilian rosewood? Well, Brazilian rosewood was used in the 50s, in the 40s, in the 30s, in the 20s. They used Brazilian rosewood because that's where rosewood came from, Brazil. They didn't give a shit. They cut down too much Brazilian rosewood, and they said, yo, whoa, we have to slow down here. You're cutting all the fucking trees down. So then they stopped. And that's why it became bad. So you got to use other rosewood. I mean, we can debate genus in trees and genetic makeups and whatnot if you want. I don't bother with that shit. I really don't want to get that technical with it because it's really not that technical of a thing to really go through. I love rosewood. I prefer rosewood on all guitars, as a matter of fact. Not really fond of maple boards. Even ebony boards. But if you want to hear a difference between woods in a fretboard, then you play a Brazilian, here we go, see? You play a rosewood, Brazilian or non-Brazilian. You play a maple, you play an ebony. You'll hear a difference between the three different types of wood. But if you're going to fucking split hairs and you're going to say, well, this East Indian rosewood does not sound anything like my Brazilian rosewood because it's from Brazil, you're a crazy person. Don't worry, I'm a crazy person too. We all are. But there's no difference. There isn't. Brazilian rosewood is good because it's leather seats. That's what it is. It's leather seats in a car. Do you need leather seats in a car? No. The car will still work, won't it? Still be great, right? Maybe you want velvet seats in your car, not leather seats. Right? But that's what Brazilian rosewood is. It's nice to have. It's cool. But the most part, when you're playing on stage, you forget it's even there. You really don't even remember it's there. You're just like, wow, I love this guitar. I don't give a fuck what, genus my, if my rosewood comes from 197th Street or, 14th Street, doesn't really matter to me. It's still rosewood. You know what I'm talking about? Alright. Hide glue. Here's another one. Does hide glue make a difference? Well, I'm going to say no. I was one of the biggest advocates for hide glue. It should always be hot hide glue, and back years ago when they were using Tight Bond, I was still like, you gotta use the hide glue, bullshit, come on, what the hell, this, and it took a long time for them to get their asses off the ground and to do it. Believe me, all of these changes that we talk about have been argued over years ago. years and years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Because remember, the historic collection's been around for 30 years now. We've been arguing about this a long time. They have just recently gotten their act together. And that, again, that's planned obsolescence. That's why they've got their act together. They wanted to squeeze that money out. You know, like, hey, look at this. You know, look what we did here. Buy the new one. Here, buy this new one. You know, that kind of thing. Hide glue. In 1950s, the Les Paul used hide glue for the neck joint and the fretboard. That's it. Maybe for the Hollywood veneer. But the top was not glued onto the body with hide glue. Not then and not today. It's not done. Why? Because it's too much of a surface area. The glue won't cure. Tops are glued to bodies with an epoxy. Back in the 50s, if you look through a burst, you take this out, you can find the resin, little chips of the epoxy, as opposed to chips of the fucking hide glue. It's been documented. It's on the internet. You can. You don't believe me? Go find a video. There was this young guy making an analysis of a '59 Les Paul, and he found it. And he said, "Hey, look, this is the epoxy. It's done with epoxy." So all of the times when you see Gibson and they put that shit in their brochures, they're lying to you. They're just trying to make you buy a guitar, which I really find distasteful. I've always found distasteful in Gibson's marketing, the way they do things. That being said, is it going to be a big difference between tight bond and hide glue? Hide glue is better. Hide glue will crystallize. Hide glue will make a better bond. Is it going to make a huge difference? I say no. I played the ones with the hide glue. I have a few with the hide glue. Do I really notice a massive difference if I take one that doesn't? This one does not have hide glue. This one has tight bond. I don't notice a difference. I really don't. And believe me, I'm a very anal bastard when it comes to tone of the instrument and stuff. When you're on stage and you're in front of an audience, nobody's going to give a shit whether you have tight bond or hide glue. Nobody's going to even know the difference. Nobody's going to know what it is, period. And a good example of this, and this is a very good example, if you watch Led Zeppelin's O2 show, where they did their reunion, alright? Jimmy Page, for 90% of the time, is not using number one. He's using his historic that was copied from number one. You don't believe me? Watch the video. When it comes to the back of the headstock, you'll see his signature on it. First song to notice, to really look for, is Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused is not played with his number one. It's played with his historic. So here you go. Here you got Jimmy Page using the historic. Billy Gibbons uses them. Again, it's like, if there is such a massive drive for the original guitars, buy a historic, bring it on stage, bring it on the road, play the damn thing. Enjoy a burst, because this is the modern burst. There are a few things wrong. Let's go into the finish. Okay? I don't want to get too I can go off on tangents. Let's, as people on my Facebook page all know, I can go on tangents. But anyway, let's talk about the finish. The real problem with historics today, historics then, historics today, is the finish. The nitro that Gibson uses has plasticizers in it. If I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, kiss my ass, that's how I say it. But it has too much plasticizers in it. That's to make the finish pliable. It makes it more rubbery. It doesn't cure as fast. It doesn't crystallize as fast. So that it doesn't check. The nitro that they used back in the 50s had much less plasticizers in it, if to any. I'm not going to go into the formulas and shit like that, because Kim is best to ask for that information. Kim from Historic Makeovers, because that man has his own formula, and as far as I know, it doesn't have any plasticizers in it, which is why Kim, when he ages guitars, he can put them in the cold and they will check correctly. They won't shatter. If you get something that shatters, Your finish sucks. This guitar hasn't been refinished. I haven't had any of my guitars refinished. It's expensive to do that. It's worth it. You give your guitar to Kim, he does a good job. Excuse me. He does a good job. Because I played many of Kim's guitars that were refinished. A friend of mine had a few of them done. A lot of my friends had them done, but I played a few, you know, and they're fantastic. He does a great job. One of these days I'll get one of mine done by him, but I don't have the money to do that. I'm too busy buying the fucking things. So anyway, your finish is going to make a massive difference because the wood vibrates. Okay, and the one thing it's going to slow down is vibration. The one real thing is not the hot glue. It's going to be the finish. That's going to be the one thing that's going to really stop your guitar from vibrating and breathing and whatnot and so forth. So the finish has to be thin. The finish has always been thin. The guitars have always been wet sanded. That's not, again, something that they put out many years ago with this true historic crap. It wasn't anything new. It was just new put in the marketing. Guitars are all wet sanded. That's how you make the finish shiny. I've done it myself. You know, especially when you age a guitar, you have to dull it down. There's a process to it. Use micro mesh and whatnot and so forth. So finishes are a big deal. Analog dies. Gibsons have always used analog dies for years. Not anything new. This is also not anything new now. The backs will fade. Okay? And fade rather quickly. They'll bleed because that's how the dye comes out in your hands from the oil from your hand. The oil from your hand will, you know, you're damaging the guitar every time you touch it. It's just what you're doing. It'll bring it out. It fades. Once you use it, many of my guitars, if you look at the back of the necks, they're brown. They're not red anymore because it comes right off eventually. And then eventually the fucking finish will start to come off your guitar. Red will fade very fast. Tops don't fade. I'm sorry, but they don't fade. Everything in the world is light fast. Is not light fast. In other words, you can fade anything. UV rays will fade anything. Okay? But if you fade a historic with UV rays, believe me, it will not fade like you think it's going to fade. There have been plenty of people who have done it many years ago, again, because we all have tried doing that shit, and it doesn't come out great. The guitars don't fade. They're not supposed to fade. You're buying a lemon drop. You want a lemon drop? It's a lemon drop. You want a T-burst? Why would you buy a T-burst and have it fade out to a lemon drop in like a couple of months? It doesn't make any sense, you know, selling-wise. That being said, they will fade, but they won't fade like you think they fade. And they will not fade like the 50s. But the backs will fade like a motherfucker. Which is why recently they've been, you know, dyeing the shit out of them, making them really dark red, which I really don't like. But, you know, this has faded over the years. It's now very subdued red, brown in some areas. It's not much buckle rash on this guy, as opposed to 23. But again, I use 23 much more. So that's my 2 cents for today. I'm going to do some more. I have a lot more things to cover, but this was a good one. Next, I think maybe we'll do pickup covers. That's always a sore subject with people. But it's something that little detail makes all the best. We can even do switch tips. We'll do that too. We'll do parts. But for right now, I covered what I wanted to cover here. I got other ideas. If anybody has an idea, wants something, hey, talk about this talk about that talk, tell me in the comments. You know, if I don't get to it, yell at me later, say you stupid bastard, you didn't listen to me. You know. All right, go play your guitar.